Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And the general understanding is that we always keep spiritual books, specifically Gita, Bhagavatam, just above our hip level, not put it down. Although you may have some book down, it is to be understood. That's why I was explaining you that. Hare Krishna. Oh, welcome back. So we will begin with the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita today, which is entitled the Dhyana Yoga, also called the Ashtanga Yoga. So we will try to recollect what has happened in the 5th chapter, why Krishna is now going to speak about the Ashtanga Yoga. So we discussed 3 important points. In the 5th chapter of the Gita, there are 3 concepts also explained as to who is the doer and what is the role of the 3 modes and what is the role of the Lord. That was discussed as well. And also the Krishna also explained to Arjuna how to practically act. Same question, Arjuna was still bewildered after hearing all the instructions about Gyan in the 4th chapter. And he was still trying to understand, should I renounce my activity or should I engage in action? I'm still not very clear with that. Arjuna had the doubt, so Krishna explained to him that you act in Krishna consciousness, work for me, keeping me in the center, you engage in activity. So that the Lord explained to Arjuna. And we also saw the qualities of advanced devotee or a yogi, one who has established his connection with Paramatma. What are his qualities that we discussed? And while we were discussing that, Krishna introduced in the 5th chapter how one can elevate himself, how one can from the stage of Jnana further progress to connect himself with the Paramatma. So Krishna is introducing, he gave a prelude regarding the Ashtanga Yoga system. So he explained that one can be engaged in yoga, one has to follow the 8-fold system. He gives an idea. He was speaking about Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Dharana, Dhyana, then Samadhi. He gave, so why that is required? Who can practice that? And so there are some transcendentalists who take up this process, so that was explained. And that is the link for this 6th chapter. So Krishna gives an introduction, and also Krishna very nicely, Lord summarized with the idea that even though one may engage in those kind of Ashtanga Yoga activities, but one should never forget during that process, what one should not forget? Can you remember yesterday we discussed that point? There is one thing Krishna is explaining. He gave an introduction about the Ashtanga Yoga, and then he concluded the chapter with one verse. Yes, he speaks about the Bhoktaram Yagitapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suhurdam Sarvabhutanam Jnatva Mam Shantim Richati. He says that, so one may engage in these yoga activities, but not to forget that I have to be kept in the center. They should clearly understand that I am the goal of life. I am the supreme enjoyer. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. Krishna is the proprietor of all the planetary systems. Everything is emanated from him. He is the real enjoyer, and he is the real well-wisher. So Krishna says, unless one understands these three truths, one will never be able to be peaceful. And also, Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he discussed and emphasized the point, all the systems of the angas of the eightfold yoga system, it's already included in the Bhakti Yoga. If you observed yesterday, so Prabhupada very clearly points out. So for a devotee does not have the endeavor practicing these forms of yoga. He has, because all these processes are included in Bhakti Yoga. So a person who is practicing Bhakti Yoga is in a very superior position. And also, Srila Prabhupada pointed out that the eightfold yoga system is a difficult process. So he did point out that. And we will see in this chapter, Arjuna himself will also express that situation when Krishna explained about the entire process of Dhyana Yoga. So that is to be understood. So we understand right from the beginning, Krishna is speaking to Arjuna of various yoga systems. So he speaks about, the beginning he spoke about the Sankhya Yoga to differentiate between body and spirit, and then he also takes him a step ahead and then explains how one can, by using the intelligence, by Buddhi Yoga, one will act for the sake of Dharma. So he says that Sukhadukke Samaya Kritva Labha Labho Jaya Jayo. So he says that you work as a matter of Dharma, don't expect any results and don't be attached to the results. So Krishna, he introduces that. Then gradually Krishna explains the whole concept of not to be enjoyer of the activities. So he, in the third chapter, he introduces the concept of yajna. So how by engaging for the Supreme Lord, one will not be bound up. Then he also explains that the idea of engaging in action is for those who have not completely purified themselves. So when the senses are not completely purified, you cannot get into the process of jnana. The jnana process requires purification of senses. If someone takes up to the process of jnana without sufficient purification, the result will be disastrous fall down, because his senses, although he is trying to control his senses, he is trying to control his mind, but already externally he is trying to do that, but internally his mind and senses are absorbed in sense gratification. So in that situation, the process of jnana, which involves brahmacharya, sannyas, it is not possible. So he is suggesting to Arjuna that you please be fixed in your dharma as a kshatriya and take up this fight. And in that way, when you act for me, then that is sannyas. Now the same idea Krishna is again going to emphasize in the beginning 2 verses of this chapter. So the idea is that to clearly to understand what is meant by renunciation. What is the idea of renunciation? Who is the real sannyasi? So this has to be very clearly understood. Because unless this is understood properly, our practice of spiritual life will be a mess. Because this is a very fundamental understanding. And also, we can see throughout the Bhagavad Gita, the whole concept of dharma is being discussed. What is dharma should be understood properly. In fact, right from beginning, Arjuna is trying to give various explanations to Krishna to say that why he will not fight. Because for Arjuna, he felt that what he is doing is dharma. And he is also, to substantiate that, he is quoting from various Dharma-śāstras. He is pointing out from scriptures that, you see Krishna, there are so many reasons why I don't want to fight, and we discussed elaborately in the first chapter how he is pointing out about sinful reactions, he is pointing out about compassion, he is pointing out about how the Kula Dharma, Jati Dharma, the family dynasty, everything will be destroyed. All are valid points. From one level of dharma, it appears to be true. Yes, all these things are going to be in great destruction if there is going to be a war. So now this is the whole discussion. We have to understand this properly with a proper philosophical insight. We should understand what is dharma. So this is a very important topic in the spiritual pursuit, because there could be various situations we may be caught up with. So this in Mahabharata also this term is being very much discussed, called Dharma Sankata. Dharma Sankata means you are in a dichotomy or you are in a dilemma, what to do in this situation, how to act in this situation. In fact, in the Mahabharata, Krishna himself, he narrates an incident, a famous incident about a Brahmana. A Brahmana who was living in the outskirts of a village. He was very austere person, very fixed in the principles of dharma, and he was following everything. So one time there was a merchant who was a honest merchant, who was doing business. He had a lot of gold coins. So some thieves, they were aware that about the gold coins that he was having, so they were chasing him. They wanted to take away the gold coins. So this merchant, with great rush, great hurry, he came all the way to the edge of the village, and then he just entered the house where the Brahmana was there. So he just explained the situation to the Brahmana. I'm in a very difficult situation, I'm going to die, the thieves are going to kill me, please save me, give me some shelter. So he said that you go and then hide behind that bush. So the Brahmana gave him shelter. And then within few minutes, these thieves came. And then they were asking, did you find a fellow who came here with a lot of gold? He said, then immediately Brahmana was thinking, Brahmana means never speak a lie. So he didn't want to say a lie at that time. So he said that, you see, please, he's there. And they caught him and then they killed him. So but then when the judgment came, the Brahmana he lost the principle of dharma. He didn't act properly in that particular situation. Krishna himself is narrating this story. So it is so important to know what is dharma in a particular situation. So it might apparently appear like two contradictory situations. Apparent contradiction, it might appear like in a particular act. But in this particular situation, we have to see the time, place and circumstance. How to apply certain rules in certain situations. That needs to be understood. And that has to be learned. Yes, the Bhagavatam says, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Whatever the Lord speaks, that is the real dharma. And that's why we follow Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. And also many times we are in a dilemma, what to do, how to act in this particular situation. So that is why we have Guru, that is why we have Sadhus, that is why we have Shastra. So that needs to be, unless we consult these three, then we will not be able to judge and act properly in a situation. So exactly that we saw, Arjuna he surrendered to Krishna, because with all his rational, all his intelligence, all his analysis, he was not able to decide what to do, whether to fight or not to fight. So immediately Arjuna took a position of a surrendered servant to Arjuna. So that needs to be understood. So that is why we see here Arjuna is consistently asking questions to understand the proper dharma. And also we see here that Arjuna, knowing the minds of the conditioned souls in this Kali Yuga or the generations to come, there are various systems of spiritual practices. So what will be the best practice? So to know, Arjuna is coming up with various questions. So in this situation we see here, Arjuna was posing this question. So what is actual sannyas? What is actual renunciation? So that should be understood. Also we see Krishna explaining in the previous chapters of what is meant by spirituality, or how to understand matter dovetailed in the service of God becomes spiritual. This is also many people cannot understand. So that is why we see Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing the point of Yukta Vairagya, Falgu Vairagya. All those things was very, very deeply discussed. So that's why sometimes we see, when we say a devotee, whatever act he performs, it's all completely on the spiritual platform. How is that? For example, we wake up, a devotee wakes up early in the morning, he brushes his teeth, he takes bath. What it has got to do with spiritual life? Yes, we have to understand the proper perspective. It is very much spiritual, because it is very much Krishna conscious. How brushing the teeth, cleaning oneself, how it can be Krishna conscious, how dressing oneself can be Krishna conscious. Because a devotee does it simply for the pleasure of the Lord. He is maintaining his body for the pleasure of the Lord. So this has to be understood. So otherwise he is not interested, he is not so much in the bodily platform. He is not going to gym, he is not every day standing in front of the mirror and then checking about his beauty and all those things. He knows that this body is an yantra. This body should be engaged in the Lord's service. So I need to maintain this body. So he wakes up, he keeps his body clean, he brushes properly, and so that he could be completely fit to be engaged in the service of the Lord. You see, so if you don't understand properly, you will totally misunderstand the whole concept. So dharma needs to be understood properly. So it's so important to understand this philosophical point. So that is why so much discussion is going on in the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna is again and again asking questions, and it is also so important for us in our daily practice always to act according to the principles of dharma, to know what is dharma and to act according to the principles of dharma. Otherwise, whimsically leading life, whimsically performing, engaged in action, we will end up in complete bondage in this material world. So this was also Krishna already discussed in the previous chapters. You see how all these chapters are gradually culminating, bringing to the concept of what is dharma. So there is parodharma and there is also dharma with regards to the material world. So in the name of practicing parodharma, we don't completely reject all the dharmas that is there in the material world. A devotee keeps in mind what is parodharma and he acts according to the situation in the material world. So this requires expertise, this requires guidance. So exactly here Arjuna wants to know, you are asking me to fight, you are asking me to kill my relatives. How do I understand? At the same time, you spoke so much about qualities of self-realized soul. You spoke about the glories of all the different sacrifices that are in those people in various ashramas, they engage in various sacrifices. And you also say that all these sacrifices culminate in jnana, in knowledge. And also you glorified about how you have to clear all the doubts, and then one has to be fixed in knowledge. And also you said that uttishtaha, with great vigor, now you wake up and then you fight. So how do I understand all these things? So that's why Arjuna is posing question one after another, and Krishna is step by step he is clarifying and he is exactly explaining to Arjuna what is the dharma. So far if you have seen all the discussion, there are many places Krishna has given a hint and Krishna has emphasized the principle of bhakti. So he says that mai sanyasya mat paramo. So you engage, you act for me, you renounce for me, you engage in my activity, you engage for my pleasure. So that is a higher principle. So Krishna is just pointing out to Arjuna this higher principle. So that is why here we can see that Krishna is explaining about what is real sannyas. So that is how the discussion is going to begin. So for that we need to understand this whole concept of dharma. So if we don't understand this principle of dharma, then we will not understand what is the flow that is going on, why so much discussion is happening. So that is the whole background behind the entire discussion that is happening in the Bhagavad Gita. So this should be understood properly. So this is the link between the 5th chapter and the 6th chapter, that Arjuna Krishna has explained to Arjuna about he has given an introduction about why to perform this Ashtanga Yoga, why to engage in this Ashtanga Yoga system and what is the need for it. And he further is going to discuss in this chapter how some of the spiritual practitioners who are taking up the process of Ashtanga Yoga, and they, by the process of Ashtanga Yoga, they come out of the, they are getting they either in one level merge with the impersonal Brahman, some of the Jnanis, and then the dhyana, by the process of meditation, they realize Paramatma. So those discussions will happen in this chapter. So this is how the divisions of the chapter we have in this yoga ladder. So we will discuss about what is yoga rudukshu and yoga ruda. So what is the beginning stage of yoga and what is the topmost stage of yoga. So that is called as yoga rudukshu and yoga ruda. Krishna discusses about that. And also how there are different systems. You know, the other system of some people are practicing karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, and then bhakti yoga. So how all the different systems are aimed at the Supreme Lord. So the step-by-step system is given. So that is being discussed. Then part of this Ashtanga Yoga, you have we will discuss about that. So you have Yama, Niyama and all those regulations. For all those things, Krishna also, right from the beginning of the second chapter, he discusses about controlling the senses and the mind. Without control of senses and the mind, we cannot make progress. So there are a lot of set of instructions that is given about controlling the mind, how the mind should be controlled, how the mind should act like a friend. When the mind acts like a friend, what is the consequence? When the mind is acting like an enemy, what is the consequence? So how the mind, we should control the mind. So because this is a prerequisite to make progress in the eightfold yoga system. So that is being discussed. So those are the verses from 5 to 10. Then by the practice of yoga, what is yoga to be understood? And by the practice of yoga, what should be attained? That should also be understood. Krishna reminds that the practice of yoga leads one to come in contact with the super soul. So that should be understood. Then after Krishna explains about all the details of the yoga practice, how one should sit, how one should meditate, how one should respond to the external world, Arjuna completely rejects the idea of this eightfold yoga system, and he gives various reasons why I cannot perform this Ashtanga yoga system. So those are the verses which are from 33 to 36. And then what is now after having Krishna spoken all this Ashtanga yoga process, if someone, there is a question Arjuna is raising, that if someone is able to come to the level of the Ashtanga yoga, and if he practices, but if he is not able to succeed, what is the consequence? So entire discussion, Krishna speaks about what is success in yoga, what is not success in yoga, and what will be the destination of a yogi who is not successful in his practice. So there are some 8 verses Krishna is dealing with that. And then at the conclusion of this chapter, Krishna very clearly establishes who is the topmost yogi. So the entire yoga systems culminates in the process of bhakti. So this is the conclusion of this chapter. So it culminates in the process of bhakti yoga. And we can see that how a person who, although he may not be sitting in one place, engaged in meditation, but he may be fully engaged in activity, but still how he can be called a topmost yogi, how he can be called a bhakti yogi. All those discussions we will be, we will have all these discussions in this chapter. Okay, text 1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Anashrita Karma Palam Karyam Karma Karoti Yah Sa Sannyasi Cha Yogi Cha Na Niragnir Na Chakriyah. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order. So here Krishna is clarifying again about who is a sannyasi and who is a yogi, and what is the difference between sannyas and what is the difference between yoga, or to put how a sannyasi is also a perfect yogi. So we could see this discussion that is happening in this chapter. Now we could see here that the definition of a sannyasi also we will see in this chapter, in this particular upcoming verses. And also Krishna is here in the first 2 verses, he is glorifying the position of a person acting in Krishna consciousness. So far Krishna also explained that it is better to act rather than falsely renounce. And in the very first 2 verses, he is explaining how a person who is acting in Krishna consciousness is far better than someone artificially renouncing. So now we can see here, he is saying Anashrita Karma Palam. So one performs activity, but by the activity he is not attached to the results, but he is steadfast in his action. He is performing it as a matter of duty, and again a step ahead, he is performing it for the pleasure of the Lord. He is engaged in various activities. So he says, but he is not attached to the results. Anashrita Karma Palam. Karyam Karma Karoti Yaha. So that means what? He is engaged in activity, he is engaged in action. Then on the other hand, he says that sa sannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriya. So, and a person who is in the renounced order of life, what he is doing, what the person in the renounced order of life, what he is doing, he is not engaged in fire sacrifices. So, and he is not engaged in duty. So here Krishna is explaining the position of a sannyasi and the position of a person who is actually engaged in action. He may apparently be an householder also. He may be performing various activities, but he is not attached to the results. So now let's see what Srila Prabhupada has got to say in the purport. In this chapter, the Lord explains that the process of the eightfold yoga system is a means to control the mind and the senses. However, this is very difficult for people in general to perform, especially in the age of Kali. Although the eightfold yoga system is recommended in this chapter, the Lord emphasizes that the process of karma yoga or acting in Krishna consciousness is better. Immediately at the beginning of this chapter, Krishna is just again emphasizing, see, the chapter is entitled Ashtanga Yoga. He says that again, I am reminding you that Arjuna, fighting is much better for you. Why? And there are various reasons he is going to give. Now, if you see the people in Kali Yuga, the Bhagavatam explains what is the situation of people in Kali Yuga. Prayena alpaishu sabya kalau asmin yuge jana manda sumanda matayo manda bhagyaya upadritaha. The first sentence that is said, prayena alpaishu. Actually we are short-lived. Now if you see the four cycles of ages, and if you see Satya Yuga, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, Kali, in Satya Yuga people can live for 1 lakh years. And then in Treta Yuga, people's lifespan reduced. You just remove 1 0, so it is 10,000 years. And also the physical strength, mental strength. In Satya Yuga, they were even more strong. Even if you remember, when we were discussing the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the very first verse, the verse where the Srila Prabhupada gives a reference from Mahabharata about the different yugas when the advice was given to Vivaswan, Manu, and the discussion begins from Satya Yuga. In the Krita Yuga, people were very strong, the mind was very fixed, they were all very highly qualified, and they were all fixed in the principles of Dharma. So that is the quality of people in the very first Yuga. So as the Yuga progresses, the principles of Dharma also, one by one, it diminishes. So by 1/4, everything is diminishing. So we could see the age also, from 1 lakh years it became, the second Yuga it became 10,000 years, and then in Dwapara Yuga it came down to 1,000 years, and then in Kali Yuga 100 years. But how many of them are living 100 years? You see, even 100 years, someone who lives 100 years, that means a great achievement. Previously we used to have this function, that when someone becomes when it comes to 60 years, sometimes say 60 years of marriage life, and then 80 years, 80 years they have another function. Nowadays, because of so many pollution and various other problems in Kali Yuga, people are they're able to survive for 50 years, 60 years. It becomes very difficult. This is how the Kali Yuga is going to progress. So anyway, so Srila Prabhupada here is pointing out that it is very difficult for people in Kali Yuga to concentrate, to sit in one place, to be in proper asana, to sit straight. It is a great challenge. So he is pointing out that this eightfold yoga system is so difficult for people to follow. Okay, so let's proceed. So to act in satisfying, everyone acts in this world to maintain his family and their paraphernalia, but no one is working without some self-interest, some personal gratification, be it concentrated or extended. The criterion of perfection is to act in Krishna consciousness and not with a view to enjoying the fruits of work. You see, immediately Krishna in this verse, he is pointing out anashrita karma phalam. He is saying that. So for again and again this point is being emphasized. You see, we just go through the pages of the Bhagavad Gita. You open any page, you will see Srila Prabhupada's purpose pointing out this. Hey, remember, you are not the enjoyer of this material world. Krishna is the enjoyer of this material world. Krishna is the proprietor of all the planetary systems. Krishna is the bhokta. Krishna is your well-wisher. You have to give yourself to Krishna. This point is again and again reminded, because this is something we are diseased, we are in a diseased condition. Anything we see, we look at for our own enjoyment. So Srila Prabhupada is pointing out here, as the verse also points out, that Krishna is saying that, so action in Krishna consciousness is much better. And what kind of action? That action which is not binding you in this material world. And how the action will not bind you? When you are not looking for enjoyment that is going to come from that particular action. So that means you have to act for the pleasure of the Lord. We have to train ourselves, mold our mind, mold our senses, to always remind that Krishna is Rishikesha. He is the master of the senses and the mind. We have to give pleasure to him. This has to be understood. So Srila Prabhupada is pointing out here that in this whole world, everyone is acting either for himself or for his son or for his daughter or for his wife or for the local place where he is staying or for the state or for the country. This is how everyone is looking at this whole world. So Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that here. So this is called as a personal gratification, either concentrated or extended. So this is not going to help one make progress, because he is going to be bound. So again and again, the Lord is also emphasizing that you have to understand, you have to engage in yajna. You have to engage in the process of dharmic yajna. Why? Because in the yajna, the Lord is situated in the yajna. What the Lord says, yajna pratishtitaha. I am there in the yajna. So that's why Krishna is prescribing this practice of yajna. Okay. Srila Prabhupada is further continuing. The criteria of perfection is to act in Krishna consciousness and not with a view to enjoying the fruits of work. To act in Krishna consciousness is the duty of every living entity, because all are constitutionally parts and parcels of the Supreme. The parts of the body work for the satisfaction of the whole body. The limbs of the body do not act for self-satisfaction, but for the satisfaction of the complete whole. Similarly, the living entity who acts for the satisfaction of the Supreme Whole and not for personal satisfaction is a perfect sannyasi, the perfect yogi. Again, this is a fundamental principle to be understood, that we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So when we understand that we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, obviously we act for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. So we have theoretically heard this, but to get the realization of it, we have to practice, we have to engage, control the senses, control the mind, and we have to simply engage in the process of devotional service. Then more and more we engage, the more and more we realize we are part of the Lord. How many examples Srila Prabhupada has given? Srila Prabhupada gives an example of screw in the machine. The screw cannot be fitted anywhere. We saw in the previous chapter. It has to be in the proper place. So Srila Prabhupada also gives, right there, here he is giving the example of the parts of the body has to serve the body. If the hand is going to become independent, says, I want separate enjoyment, I want separate rights. And if he's going to try enjoying separately, the hand cannot. You may try, you try to feed some, dosas, gulab jamun, whatever, just put it in the hand and let the hand keep chewing it, or keep pressing it. After some time you get heavy pain. The hand is not going to get any energy, rather it's going to become, there is going to be a lot of pain here. But the hand is going to be nourished, both the right hand, left hand, both the hands will be nourished if the food goes through the mouth to into the stomach. So, very basic philosophical point, but this is the whole Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is all about acting for the pleasure of the Lord, understanding Krishna to be the cause of all the causes. So that's why Srila Prabhupada also, in quite some lectures, he points, Esmin tushte, jagat tushte. When Krishna is pleased, everyone else is pleased. We see in the Mahabharata also, this whole incident when Duryodhana became so envious, when Durvasa Muni came to his palace, and then Duryodhana fed him nicely, took care of him nicely. So Durvasa wanted to give him some blessing. He said that, I have only one desire. I'm so concerned about the Pandavas. Please go to their place, and then you can. You please, you be the guest of honor. So he was so very much concerned, and he wanted to do welfare. He wanted to do really, as a well-wishing friend he was doing, but internally he was so envious. He wanted to completely see that the Pandavas, he knows they are in incognito, they don't have sufficient power, they hardly have anything. So let Durvasa Muni with all his 60,000 disciples, let him go there and let them suffer. And then we see Krishna is Bhakta Vatsala. Krishna knows the heart of all the devotees, you know. So when, although Draupadi had this Akshay Patra, you know, the system is that whatever anyone till from morning, anyone comes, so much can be fed from this vessel. Everyone can be fed. But then once after all the actors, the feeding and everything is over, she keeps the pot upside down, and then that's it for the day. So exactly, the Pandavas, they honored prasadam, everything was finished, and then they get the news. Durvasa Muni with all the 60,000 disciples are there. And so, what to do? It's a very delicate situation. And who else is there for them to call? They're calling for Krishna, Keshava, what to do? Krishna was immediately there. And Krishna was there, Krishna was asking, so, I'm also hungry, give me something, you know. And then, says, go and see, something is there. So there are different descriptions given. There is a piece of shark was there, 1 grain was there. So Krishna was fed, Krishna took that 1 grain, and then immediately, so the Durvasa Muni and party, they were taking bath in the river with all the 60,000 disciples, and then everyone was burping like anything. They were all belching, they were great difficulty. And then they said that, okay, again the invitation came, oh, now the lunch is ready, they're calling you. No, let's run away from this place. We will die if we're going to eat more. So they had great feast. So that's the whole point. And when a devotee understands this, if we offer everything to Krishna, Krishna will take care of everything. Nothing to worry. So that faith is required. So that we have to understand. And Krishna is part and parcel. And if I act for the pleasure of Krishna, Krishna is going to be pleased. Krishna is going to take care of everything. So a devotee has got this faith in Krishna. So this is again an anga of bhakti. Krishna is the protector. Krishna is the maintainer. So a devotee understands this. So we are trained in Krishna consciousness under the guidance of the Guru to depend on Krishna. So although we have some acts to perform, but we act in such a way that Krishna is there, Krishna's protection is there, Krishna is going to be with us. So that is bhakti, that is the process of Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada is exactly pointing out here that to act in Krishna consciousness, understanding our responsible position as the servant of Krishna. So then actually such a person is to tell exactly what is the situation of such a person. He is a yogi, he is a sannyasi. Rather than a person who may be a sannyasi, but if his renunciation, if it is a dry renunciation, if he does not understand what is the purpose of that renunciation, such a renunciation is a useless renunciation, because we have not understood the purpose of sannyas. Okay, let's continue this purport. So here I'm just going to read the same line again. Similarly, the living entity who acts for satisfaction of the supreme whole and not for personal satisfaction is the perfect sannyasi, the perfect yogi. So that's the whole point. So even one may have taken sannyas, one may have accepted the sannyas, but if he does not act for the pleasure of the Lord, then his sannyas is not meaningful. So what is the underlying point? The point is that one should come out of the idea of personal satisfaction, but rather one should come to the platform of satisfying Krishna's senses. Okay. Now if you see in the second line of the verse, Krishna is pointing out about Niragnir. He says, he does not light fire. So why Krishna is saying that? Let's see what Srila Prabhupada is explaining here. The sannyasis sometimes artificially think that they have become liberated from all material duties, and therefore they cease to perform Agnihotra yajnas, fire sacrifices. But actually they are self-interested because their goal is to become one with the impersonal Brahman. This is an amazing point. Srila Prabhupada is pointing out about all these impersonalists. What is their idea? See, we already heard sannyas, someone takes sannyas means he is socially dead from the society. He has got no connection with the society. He has already purified his senses and mind. And that's why you see he doesn't wear panchakacha, because to engage in yajna one has to wear panchakacha, a shikha should be tied, and there are several rituals one has to perform. Specifically we can see Brahmana, in any house of Brahmana, traditionally you can see all the time there is fire in the house. There is always yajna being performed. Yajna is to invoke auspiciousness. Yajna, by yajna they are pleasing the Lord, and also they are maintaining the entire auspiciousness of the society by the performance of yajna. If the Brahmana doesn't perform yajna, then he will not be able to guide the society. So his main principle of activity is to please the Lord. But again, now also there are also different auspicious activities the Brahmanas are engaged in. In family life, there are so many activities that are being performed. So in all these activities, yajnas are involved. But when one takes sannyas, he does not have to be, he does not have to engage in yajna. He does not have to be part of any social system. So now, on the other hand, we can see Vaishnava sannyasis. He may be engaged in yajna, he may be engaged in puja, he may even cook. So we discussed the other day how that sannyasi in that Gaudiya Math was engaged in all the activities. So how do we understand that? So this is the whole point, as Krishna explains, that the whole purpose of sannyas also is for what? Is to act for the pleasure of the Lord, simply for the pleasure of the Lord, nothing else. So if required, a sannyasi, if there is no one to do some act from service for Krishna, a sannyasi will do. But generally, when there are large numbers of devotees, when there is an opportunity for several people to engage in various service, a sannyasi is engaged in acts of preaching, engaged in acts of guiding the devotees. Doesn't mean that, but the sannyasi very clearly knows, I am meant simply for the pleasure of the Lord. So I will do anything for the Lord's pleasure. If required, he will even come and throw the garbage out. Whatever that is required, he will do, because he has this understanding. That is why he has taken sannyas. That is the proper understanding of sannyas. But by sannyas, by renouncing, by not doing all these activities, not performing these yajnas and all these things, if he does not understand that I have to give pleasure for the Lord, so such a sannyas is not proper sannyas. So that's why Srila Prabhupada is pointing out here that by sannyas you become selfless, but that selflessness should lead to engagement in the service of the Lord, to please the Lord. But if that selflessness, it's not selflessness here, it is selfishness. Why? Because by your sannyas, what are you trying to do? You're trying to merge with the Lord. You're trying to become one with the Lord. How is that? How to understand that? So that is why such a sannyas is not a perfect yogi. He is self-interested. That's why Srila Prabhupada here we can see he is discussing about all three personalities. Who are those three personalities? He is discussing about the Bhukti-kamis, he is discussing about the Siddhi-kamis, he is discussing about the Mukti-kamis. All of them are looking for what is it that I can get for myself. So that's why the moment this is called as mishra, everything becomes mixed. In the process of transcendence, if there is going to be a mixture like this, you will not experience the real bliss. We will not get the real bliss. That's why we often hear, give yourself to Krishna. Don't think what is there in store for you. You give yourself fully to Krishna, and then you see, there we get the real bliss. Otherwise, when we just little bit of mixture of what is in store for me, that comes, if that is going to predominate our activity, then the soul will not be satisfied completely. This is a very, it might appear like subtle, but this is the most essential point to be understood. That is why Srila Prabhupada is pointing about all the three practitioners. So what is the use of such a kind of a sannyas? Or even someone renounces. The idea of renunciation is to be engaged more in the service of Krishna. But if someone renounces and if he is not able to engage completely in service of Krishna, or he is totally disturbed, he is not able to act properly in that position, what is the point of taking sannyas? So this should be understood. So Srila Prabhupada is pointing out, such a desire is greater than any material desire, but it is not without self-interest. Which desire is greater than any material desire? That desire, which is the last snare of Maya, to merge with God. So it is even worse than everything else. Renouncing such a control of senses, control of mind, doing everything, and finally, what is the message that you are giving? You are God, I am God, everyone is God. So this is a disaster actually, greatest disaster. So Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that, so that is the greatest material desire. So then also we can see all the different mystic yogis. So these mystic yogis, they perform so many different, various kinds of siddhis they perform. There was one Tailanga Swami. He was in, in Varanasi. He was so powerful. During the British time, they were trying to, he walks naked. So they were, what is this crazy person? So let us arrest him and put him in the jail. So they put him in the jail and they found him that he is not in the jail. He is out again walking on the street. So at one point of time they just left him. So he had got so much siddhi, so much powers, he could just walk around anywhere, wherever, he can travel wherever he want. Again, what is the goal here? The goal is that by the control of senses, by the control of mind, he wants to acquire some powers. So that's why we have all these siddhis. Ashta siddhis are there: Anima, Mahima, Lahima, becoming smaller than the smallest, becoming greater than the greatest, and one can what to say? Yeah, one can just abduct someone's mind. He can just bring someone to his fold. All these powers one can get. And that's why you see sometimes this when somebody hears about all these different kinds of yogic systems, and it appears a little attractive. Oh, really? You can get this? What is a siddhi? So but don't get sidetracked. Don't get lost. What is the use of all this siddhi? So as we discussed the other day, that how different species have different siddhis. Fishes have certain siddhis. The vultures have certain siddhis. The animals, the dogs, they can from a distance they can smell everything, they can find out. So what is the use of all these siddhis? So the greatest siddhi is to forget the idea of trying to enjoy this material world and to give pleasure to the Supreme Lord. That's why I think once P.C. Sarkar, P.C. Sarkar was there, he was performing some magic show actually, and then so he was a very famous magician, and then P.C. Sarkar himself said that Prabhupada actually asked, so can you stop the repetition of birth and death? He said that, Prabhupada, I cannot do that. So the point is that Prabhupada is the greatest magician. What he did, he actually completely changed the lives of the people who are gross sense gratifiers, who wants to enjoy the senses in this world, who are completely absorbed themselves in meat eating, illicit sex, gambling, intoxication. People who are from such background became practitioners of Krishna consciousness, and they were able to give this message to so many people. So who is a great mystic? Srila Prabhupada is the greatest mystic, but we don't advertise these kind of, Prabhupada also had several mystic powers. He could foresee some things, he could judge many things in advance, he could do many amazing activities, but actually generally we don't speak about all these things, we don't promote all these things. Why? Because people generally, they have a conception that spiritual person means he can do something magical, mystic. When there is some mysticism, then immediately they realize that, oh, he's a powerful yogi, he's a powerful personality. So that should not be misunderstood. So what is the point? The point is that these yogis, all these mystic yogis, they are behind some power, they are behind some siddhis, and so they give more importance to the siddhis than trying to please the Supreme Lord. Whereas a bhakta or a bhakti yogi, these siddhis and all these things, naturally it will be there with him, but he will never use it. He will never use it, never misuse it, because he knows the goal of life is to please Krishna. Many times Srila Prabhupada did some amazing, he said some statements, he knew, he was once in Juhu, he knew exactly where you will get the water, even before what is the person called who comes and then he can tell where there is water. There is a specific name for that, I don't remember. So Srila Prabhupada knew where in Juhu there is water land, where there is water, where there is rock. He already knew, even that he could say that. He was once, he came to a place, he took the mridanga, and then devotees are thinking, oh, Prabhupada will sing Jai Radha Madhava. Now he'll ask for mridanga, hardly there is any sound, what to do. Prabhupada started playing, and then such a nice sound was coming from the mridanga. And devotees were surprised, how was that? Srila Prabhupada, one Mataji she was deeply meditating on the sun, and then she was thinking that, by my meditation I will become God, like that, Then Prabhupada in the lecture, probably she was having this kind of thoughts, just on the lecture, he is dismantling this whole idea of how by meditation I can become God, how this is a foolish idea. And she was just surprised, my God, how he knew, he was able to read my mind. So many things, Srila Prabhupada did like that. There was another Mataji, she was explaining that, she got some chadar, some woolen chadar, and Prabhupada, he knew from where she had got it. So how he knew that in that place, how it is available in this particular shop, or how did he know? So she was so surprised. So there are many, so if you hear the memories, you will see so many devotees are sharing their experiences, how Srila Prabhupada was, he knew many things, and how sometimes he used to give perfect judgment on certain situations. So this is the power of a devotee, but here devotee does not show off all these things. But rather we can see on the other hand, outside world, people so much emphasize and so much they push all this so-called siddhis. They give such an importance for all these siddhis. But a devotee, he doesn't care for these things, because for him, the most important act for a devotee is to please Krishna. Okay, let's see. Purport. A Krishna conscious person has no desire for self-satisfaction. His criterion of success is the satisfaction of Krishna, and thus he is the perfect sannyasi or perfect yogi. So here, so that is the whole point. So satisfaction of Krishna, and he is called as a perfect yogi, he is called as a perfect sannyasi. Now we have to understand this. One may be in any ashram, one may be in family life also. But if he is acting for the pleasure of Krishna, he is engaging in all the duties to simply please Krishna, he is also a sannyasi. So we could see Srila Prabhupada also sometimes he gave sannyas for some people, he denied sannyas for some people. When they came and asked for sannyas, Prabhupada said that, no, there is no need of sannyas for you. And for some, he pushed, yes, you please take sannyas. So like that, we can see, he knew why it is like that, because he knew what will be best for pleasing Krishna, what will be the best part of act you can perform for Krishna. So that is to be understood, not that simply renouncing for the sake of renouncing. So what is the use of such a renunciation? Otherwise it will become falgu. So that's why we see these definitions should be understood properly. Anashita karma kalam, what is that? Anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjitah nirbandha krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. So this is about definition of the yukta vairagya. And then Krishna also says prapanchikataya vidya hari sambandhi vastuna mumukshubi parityago vairagyam falgu katyate. So falgu vairagya is being explained that if you don't understand the connection of everything with Krishna, and if you artificially renounce, such a renunciation is false renunciation. Such a renunciation is the renunciation of the monkey. So actually interesting, there is a river called Falgu in Gaya. So if you see, you will not be able to see the river at all, but if you little bit dig the land, you will see the water flowing under the land. So it's called as Falgu, it's in Gaya. And what we understand from this is that someone takes sannyas, so someone renounces, okay? But internally he is having so many different kinds of desires. He wants to enjoy this world, he wants to, he was thinking of money, women, but externally wearing saffron dress and then showing himself as a big spiritually advanced person. And so what kind of renunciation is that? It's the Falgu renunciation. So rather better to be a honest householder rather than being a false renunciant. So that is what Krishna is pointing out here. So sannyasa, you have taken sannyasa for what? Sannyasa for what purpose? What is the idea behind the sannyas? So that should be understood. So that's why we see there was once one of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada who was a temple president in Vrindavan. He was a brahmachari and he was dealing with so many different services. He was he has to deal with public, he has to deal with various things he was dealing with. He was so much involved in many other social things. Everything he was doing it for Krishna's service. So and then at one point of time he felt that I think this situation for me, in my particular situation, difficult for me to remain as brahmachari. So better I think I should continue with my service as a grahastha. So some of the devotees, some other sannyasis, some others, they advised that no, you should just continue as brahmachari, that's best for you. So the discussion went on to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada said that, let him practice as a grahastha. He is anyway continuing with his service very nicely, he is managing, doing everything nicely. So let him continue as the grahastha. So what is the point here? The point is what is to be seen in our spiritual life also. What should be seen? What should be the criteria in which we should practice spiritual life? Of course, we should not act whimsically. We should not act on the platform of Manoratha. Under the consultation of Guru, Sadhus and Shastras, we should take a conscious call what we should do. What will be favorable for me in this particular situation? What will help me to progress in Krishna consciousness? So like Arjuna is here very humbly posing questions to Arjuna, whether to fight or not to fight. Should I take sannyas or not to take sannyas? So these kind of questions, every one of us, we will face these situations. So we should consult properly and act properly. So in that particular, for someone in a particular situation, renunciation will be very favorable for him. For someone, better for him to be in family life and then engage in Krishna's service. But what is the principle? What is the most important criteria? The important criteria is to totally give oneself in Krishna's service, whatever may be the platform he is in. So that is what Krishna is pointing out in this verse. So sannyas or to act in whatever position one may be, engaged and dovetail in Krishna's service. But a sannyasi also, nevertheless we have to understand, the whole idea of taking sannyas is to preach the message of Krishna consciousness. Yes, that is glorified, that's great. But then the understanding should be very clear. So the goal of sannyasa also is to please Krishna and also acting. You are in different ashrama, but if you act for the pleasure of Krishna, both are considered to be yogi. Both are considered to be on a perfect platform. Exactly that is what Krishna is pointing out. So here, after having Srila Prabhupada explaining all these things in the purport, he is further pointing out how what should be the motive in which a devotee is leading his life, is acting. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundari, kavitam va jagadisha kamaye, mama janmani janmanishware, bhavatar bhakti rahitukitvai. So this is the idea with which a devotee practices Krishna consciousness. He does not want money, he does not want fame, he does not want followers, he does not want poetical words with which he needs to be glorified. He simply wants to please Krishna, birth after birth. That is the goal. So here, very clearly, Krishna is advising Arjuna, you continue to fight, but fight for me. So we also saw, Srila Prabhupada also many times gave this example of an army man. When he is in the army, under the guidance of the general, he can shoot, he can kill people. But if the same army man comes to the village, and then if he just kills someone innocent, he will be arrested. So similarly, same situation, firemen also, you can see sometimes, I just watched one video, how the firemen, it will be so crazy, they just break anything and everything. They break the window, they break some very strong wall, because it is an emergency situation, and then he just breaks everything, and then goes inside and then saves the lives of the people. He can do that. But on a normal situation, if you are doing such an act, you will be most probably in the aircut jail. You may have to do something else there. So that is the whole thing, that is the whole discussion. How to act, what to do, in what situation I can do this. So this has to be understood. So this Krishna is very clearly is emphasizing that. Try to understand what is sannyas, try to understand what is this karma yoga, what is this action which you have to perform in Krishna consciousness. So that is the whole point of this verse. So in this context, someone renouncing just because he finds the situation not pleasurable. So again, this is another point to be understood. In many situations, we may reject something. Why? Because we will see the situation, this is not conducive for me, this is not pleasurable for me. But Krishna is now completely, he is putting the perfect perspective, explaining that what is actually pleasurable for you, this is not the outlook with which you have to see. You have to see what is pleasurable for me, what is pleasurable, what will give pleasure for Krishna, and then you may have to act. So that is why many times we can see Srila Prabhupada will say, do the needful. You heard this? Do the needful. That means that we may be in a situation, maybe some particular act may not be our propensity, but sometimes situations will demand to do some act. So we should be ready to do anything, understanding that this is for the pleasure of Krishna. We may not be expert in that activity also, but if it is required, if you have to do that. So that is Krishna consciousness. This is a big difference between all the other yoga systems and Bhakti yoga. In Bhakti yoga, we perform activity according to the order of Krishna, according to the order of Guru. We just, right from the beginning, day one, our goal is Krishna. But in the other systems, one may be attached to some particular work, one may be attached to the result of the work, and he may do everything, and finally he may give it to Krishna. So that is on a different level. When Bhakti yoga is on a higher platform. So here, what Krishna is pushing Arjuna to act for the pleasure of the Lord. Fight for me. So that is the point. In that context, Krishna is very clearly emphasizing that when you perform, you are a yogi, you are as good as a sannyasi. So that is the right thing to be performed. Okay, here also Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur also is pointing out the same thing. In the 6th chapter, the method of yoga for one who has been purified through karma yoga and achieved control of the mind, and the method of creating steadiness for even the person of unsteady mind are described. The Lord will teach Ashtanga Yoga, the culmination of Karma Yoga, which he taught previously. The Lord first praises Karma Yoga because of its practicality in 2 verses. So that is the whole point. So here we can see by Karma Yoga and by the process of by Karma, one is purified of his senses. So who can take up the process of Ashtanga Yoga? One who has already purified his senses. But then also we will see the discussions that will be coming up in this chapter. Even in the process of Ashtanga Yoga, the different stages are given. How in the beginning stage, how a person is trying to purify his senses, how in the advanced stage he is already, because of the purification of senses, he could meditate on the Paramatma. Okay, here are some quotes. But Krishna prescribes that anashrita karma phalam, one who works without any expectation of result or reward. Then why does he work? Karyam, it is my duty. There are 2 kinds of duty in life. One is to serve the illusion and other is to serve the reality. When you serve reality, that is called real sannyasa. And when we serve the illusion, that is called maya. So immediately we can understand. So when we are acting for personal sense gratification, then we are acting for maya, then we are bound. When we act for Krishna, then we are immediately become free from the results of our activity. Anashrita karma phalam. Meditation means to stop all mundane occupation. Those who are advanced in Krishna consciousness have to work for Krishna. Just like an upset child, the mother says, my dear child, sit down here. And if the mother can keep him occupied doing various things, the child will be content. The whole Bhagavad Gita is action. Fight for me. There are no don'ts. Krishna consciousness does not mean sitting idly. We can think of Krishna's pastimes, how they are full of activities. In the spiritual world, Krishna is always dancing. You have 24 hours to dance and to eat and no time to sit around. There is no question of sitting down. Have you ever heard about the gopis meditating or sitting down? Can you imagine it? Or even Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, the point is here, Srila Prabhupada is trying to convey is that he is speaking in regard to how difficult it is in this modern age to just sit in one place and then perform meditation. But then also, the misconception is also there, no? Somebody, so the whole discussions we had, how what is action, what is inaction, how in inaction you can see action. So somebody is sitting and then, even someone is sitting and performing, doing japa, then immediately some fellows will criticize, what is this, working hands are better than serving hands are better than the lips which is performing, engaged in performing meditation. They don't understand, we are not idle, we are not completely bereft of action. The very action that we are performing, we are offering praise to Krishna. It is we are pleasing Krishna, but a person cannot understand. So rather, all the actions in Krishna consciousness is not binding. It is, we are not bound with the results because the act is done for Krishna. So that is why you can see all the time in the Krishna consciousness there is 24 hours there is activity that's being pointed out. Okay, here is another interesting quote. Vishwamitra Yogi, he did it actually. We wanted to get a man from palm tree. That why man should be begotten through the living 10 months within the womb of mother. They will be produced just like fruit. He did it like that. So sometimes yogis are so powerful, they can do. So these are all material powers. Such yogis, they are also vanquished. How long you can remain on this material power? So bhakta yogis, they do not want anything such. So this is the point. So yogis are so powerful, they can do so many things. So here Srila Prabhupada is quoting about Vishwamitra, how he could, the birth through the fruit that's being discussed. Okay. Let's go to the text 2. Yang sannyasam iti prahur yogam tang vidhi pandava naya sannyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga or linking oneself with the Supreme, O son of Pandu, for one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. So here, again, the proper understanding of renunciation is being stressed by the Lord, how by giving up the idea of sense gratification, one can be engaged in proper renunciation. So that is being stressed by the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna here. So let's see the purport. So again, the real sannyas is being discussed here. Real sannyasa yoga or bhakti means that one should know his constitutional position as a living entity and act accordingly. So you see, this is a very important point. Why Srila Prabhupada is repeating again and again? What is the problem with all the other systems? They don't identify themselves as servant of Krishna. They are with the reality. They have come up to the understanding that I am different from this body. I am spirit soul. This is the maximum level they have come up with. But of course, those who are engaged in dhyan, maybe they may have come to the Paramatma level of realization. But otherwise, this is a major problem. Unless you come to the level of understanding that I am servant of Krishna, this is my constitutional position. If you are not in that platform, then we will be trapped by Maya. So that's what Srila Prabhupada is pointing out here. The living entity has no separate independent identity. He is the marginal energy of the Supreme. When he is entrapped by material energy, he is conditioned, and when he is Krishna conscious or aware of the spiritual energy, he is in his real and natural status of life. Okay. Therefore, when one is in complete knowledge, one ceases all material sense gratification or renounces all kinds of sense gratificatory activities. So now this is the point. No? So we discussed this point before also. Again, what clicks to us when we immediately understand that I am eternal servant of Krishna? Then we understand that I am not the controller. I am not independent. In all of the processes, there is always an idea of independence is there. So there is always trying to look at the situations independent of Krishna being the controller. So that independence is there. But here immediately when we understand that we are eternal servant of Krishna, then the whole idea of sense gratification we could give up, because we know even the senses and the body belongs to Krishna. So where is the question of acting for our own self? Of course, when we are in Maya, that's what we are doing. But when we are constitutionally properly situated, then we act for Krishna. Okay. So now, Prabhupada is further pointing out, this is practiced by the yogis who restrain their senses from material attachment. But a person in Krishna consciousness has no opportunity to engage his senses in anything which is not for the purpose of Krishna. Therefore, a Krishna conscious person is simultaneously a sannyasi and a yogi. The purpose of knowledge and of restraining the senses as prescribed in the jnana and yoga processes is automatically served in Krishna consciousness. So now this is the whole point here. So someone may take sannyas, but without, or he may show the spirit of renunciation as well. There was a story of there was a newly married couple. He got a cot from his father-in-law. He got a cot from father-in-law as a gift. So he was very appreciative. That was a good cot. So he thought it's really very good. So he was very appreciative of his father-in-law till the time he went and then lied down on the cot. Because the first day when he lied down on the cot broke, and then he was extremely disappointed. Then from that day on, anybody who goes to the house, he will always be lying down, and he will say that I don't need this cot and all these are all luxuries. What is the use of all these things? This kind of idea, So renunciation based on, because you don't have a cot to use, so he shows himself like a big renunciant. So here you see the idea of renunciation should not be for sense gratification. The idea is to give we have to give pleasure to Krishna. That is the idea. So that's the whole concept of sannyasa. So when one acts as a sannyasi like that, he is a perfect yogi. So here, that's why you see in the beginning of the Prabhupada points out that sannyasa yoga, he says, or bhakti. So it's a nice point. Prabhupada coins it very nicely. So he says sannyasa yoga or bhakti yoga. So both are in the same situation. Okay. The purpose of knowledge and restraining the senses as prescribed in the jnana and yoga processes is automatically served in Krishna consciousness. So in Krishna consciousness, we do control our senses, we do control our mind, we do avoid some things, we do honor some things. So you see all these processes are included. Yama is there, niyama is there, we do concentrate, we take appropriate positions whenever according to certain services. So all these things are included. It's not, but what is the underlying principle? Underlying principle is acting for Krishna, acting for Krishna's pleasure. So that is the whole catch here. So that should be understood. Okay. So again, Srila Prabhupada is stressing here with the concluding the purport that by the yoga process, by the yoga system, we should give up the idea of sense enjoyment. We should give up the selfish nature and we should try to elevate ourselves to satisfying the Supreme. If one is able to give up the activities of selfish nature, then jnana and yoga are of no avail. The real aim is for a living entity to give up all selfish satisfaction and to be prepared to satisfy the Supreme. A Krishna conscious person has no desire for any kind of self-enjoyment and is always engaged for the enjoyment of the Supreme. One who has no information of the Supreme must therefore be engaged in self-satisfaction because no one can stand on the platform of inactivity. All purposes are perfectly served by the practice of Krishna consciousness. So this is the idea. The idea of Krishna consciousness is that it's very clearly that's why Krishna consciousness is defined. Now the chapters are going to unfold on the pure devotion. So that's why when pure devotion is defined, it is always said that it is bereft of karma and jnana. There is no mixture of karma and there is no mixture of jnana. So other day someone was asking the question, so what is the scope of karma? So if someone is very much attached to the work and the result or whatever that is performing, so that becomes karma mishra bhakti. So you are attached to this. And when someone is so much interested in mental speculation, so much he has lost the goal of all the gyan, all the study is to please Krishna. For example, we study so much Gita, Bhagavatam, these are all bhakti scriptures. But by this study, what should be our goal? What should be the result of this study? What should happen? What should happen in our life by this study? Huh? Okay, we have to engage in the service of the Lord. So we have to engage in the service of the Lord with more enthusiasm. We have to take up a mission in Krishna's service. So we also this will enhance our bhakti process. For example, our shravanam will naturally increase, our kirtanam will increase, our japa, our faith in this japa will increase. So these are all the results. And also we saw yesterday, Srila Prabhupada is also saying by practicing this principle, what Krishna is teaching here, then we can see our material desires coming down. That is a test. Our material desires should come down, and then we see how much we are progressing in devotional service, how much we are serious about taking up this process of bhakti. So that is the whole point. Prabhupada is saying that by taking up this practice of Krishna consciousness, we will come out of the selfish nature and we will try to satisfy the Supreme. So that is the whole point here. So in that sense, Krishna is explaining here that the renunciation should be for the pleasure of the Lord. So that should be, and when a person is renouncing with proper understanding, that is yoga as well. And so Arjuna, you try to link yourself with the Supreme. So now, having given this introduction with these two verses, Krishna is going to explain about the process of the Ashtanga Yoga system. So he is going to explain about the stage of Yoga Rurukshu, Yoga Ruda, and then how to control the mind, how to control the senses, and how by performance of this activity one will elevate oneself to connect himself with Paramatma, or you will be able to meet the Paramatma, you will be able to hear the dictations of the Paramatma. This is being discussed. Yeah, I just thought of another example, just it came to mind, that you can see in the Bhagavatam also, this whole point of this dharma, how to act, what to perform, whether to remain, just take for example, whether to remain a brahmachari or a grahastha. There's a nice incident in the Bhagavatam about a very specific character, the fifth canto, or the fourth canto, I think it's the fifth canto. The story of Priyavrata Maharaj. Priyavrata Maharaj was well qualified. He could have remained as a brahmachari. He had all the qualifications. But then what happened? when Brahma came and requested, Narada Muni also spoke to him upon the advice of all the great personalities. So he decided, okay, let me enter the family life. For what? Because the Lord, there is a mission, the Lord has a plan, and the Lord wanted certain things to be accomplished by Priyavrata Maharaj, so he accomplished the process. So his taking up this mission of family life is as good as sannyas, because he didn't do it for sense gratification, he had a mission. So all these things, you see, when we understand the proper perspective of dharma, when we understand what is sannyas, when we understand what is action in Krishna consciousness, then we get a clear picture of it. Otherwise, we are stuck. We don't understand why this act is being performed, why someone is performing in this situation certain acts. So you will not be able to appreciate, you will not be able to understand. So Krishna is clarifying all those things. What is sannyas, what is proper yoga, and like that. So we will stop here. So, and if you have any questions or comments, we will take it. And please, if you have some questions, please ask. I have some questions from the previous class. I would like to answer those questions. I'll just go to the first question of. It's a question from Shraddha Mataji. She is asking, in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 34, purport, one must be able to pass the test of the spiritual master. And when he sees the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. What is the test of the Guru that Srila Prabhupada is referring to? Is it the desire of the jiva to turn the propensity to enjoy into service attitude? Or how does the Guru assess this? As I understand, please correct me if I am wrong, this knowledge is revealed Shastra. So even if one reads Srila Prabhupada on his own, it may not be revealed to the jiva or understood in all its intricacies until he does menial service. Okay, thank you for this question. So we have to understand what Srila Prabhupada is pointing out here as the test. The test is to, yes, as you have also said here, yes, the propensity to enjoy this material world. Jiva is, when he comes to this material world, he comes with his desire, strong desire to enjoy this material world. But then we hear the transcendental message from Guru, Sadhu and Shastra that we are not the enjoyers of this material world. We are eternal servants of Krishna. So the first and foremost thing that we hear, we are not the controllers, we are the servant. And we get this transcendental knowledge from the spiritual master. Now, hearing is one thing. We are hearing this, and then after hearing, what do? We contemplate on it. We think about the statement that we heard, and then we think how to act on this statement. So Guru is giving strong instructions, and then it is a duty of the disciple to think on it and contemplate on it and to act favorably. So then when he acts on the instruction that he has got, then he will be enriched with realizations. So this realization comes by the mercy, because the Guru is seeing the sincerity of the disciple. He is engaged in the service, he is obedient, he is trying to please the instructions of the Guru. So we can see the example of the great Brahmana in Srirangam. He was not educated, he was not so proficient in Sanskrit, he was not a Pandit, but his Guru gave him an instruction, you please study Bhagavad Gita every day. So with great enthusiasm, he was trying to read the letters, he was trying to, with proper attitude, that my Guru has given me the instruction, so I need to abide by it, I need to follow the instruction. So he tried to follow the instruction sincerely, and as a result, the whole essence of the Bhagavad Gita, what is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita? Understand Krishna to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is the Bhakta Vatsala. Krishna always protects his devotees, and the essence of understanding, he got the essential understanding. He was in tears whenever he was looking at the picture of Krishna riding the horse for the sake of his devotee. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw it, he was in great ecstasy. Oh, you have understood the essence of Bhagavad Gita. This is the conclusion one should come to. So how he got that? He got the mercy of the Guru, because he was very sincere in his endeavor to please the Guru. So that's why many times we hear, along with the instruction, there is also empowerment, isn't it? So from our side, we have to be sincere enough to practice the principles that the spiritual master has given, and that is the whole point. We may even yes, by reading Srila Prabhupada books, we get the knowledge, we get the understanding. But then, by reading Srila Prabhupada books, we have to come to the understanding that we have to take shelter of the Guru. We have to follow his instructions. That's what Krishna is also teaching. So that's why the other day, we were explaining this point. So someone was saying that I will chant Hare Krishna. By chanting Hare Krishna, I can attain perfection. Yes, the scriptures say that just by chanting Krishna's name, one can attain liberation from the bondage of this material world. But this chanting of Hare Krishna should give us a realization that I need to take shelter of a Guru. So then we are properly situated. So it's all the question of attitude. That's why in the very beginning of the preface to the Nectar of Instruction, Srila Prabhupada clearly points out that advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. So here, when we accept the spiritual master, that shows our submissiveness. We are ready to hear the instructions of Guru, who is very dear to Krishna. So that is the proper understanding in the situation. Yes, and then all these things, even it's not just someone comes, washes pots, someone comes and then does something. Just that menial service alone is not the criteria. Yes, menial service is a symptom, and the whole attitude. You may be engaged in some big service also, saying from external position, but with what attitude that is being performed? The attitude is to please Krishna, please Guru, and in the mission of the Lord. There should be no hidden motivation. And we may have so many material desires. Gradually, we will be purified over the course of our action. So the underlying principle is the attitude. So Guru molds his attitude constantly. So that's why this verse is so important. Srila Bhakti-śāstra Saraswati Thakur also points out, Atasri Krishna Namadi na bhave grahyam indriyai sevon mukehu jigvado swayam eva spratyata. Sevon mukha, unmukha. So from turning our face away from Krishna, we have to turn our face towards Krishna. This is what the Guru is doing. Constantly he is giving us instructions from various angles, from the scriptures, from Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, from the real life incidents. All the time he is reminding us, hey, don't forget, you are eternal servant of Krishna. He is always eager to engage the disciples in the service of the Lord. And also, we can see, one gets realization. In the Bhagavatam also there are quite some discussions on parrot-like speaking and then realization. When one hears in parampara and tries to apply the principles in the service, giving oneself fully and engaging in the service, then he will be endowed with realizations. So, and then when such a person, he gives instructions to others, he guides others, that has got a very powerful impact. So the disciple should first follow all this discipline, and he should take up sincerely the advice, and then also the conclusions what Srila Prabhupada is giving in the scriptures. Many times we see we need guidance. Sometimes we are not able to understand what to apply, how to apply in this particular situation. So we need the guidance of advanced devotees. Guru is a person who gives us guidance. So that is why it is formalized there, Guru Sadhu Shastra. So all those things should be understood in proper perspective. Thank you for asking this question, because if we just take one side of it and then if we leave the other side of it, then we may not get a clear picture. So that's why we just don't say advancement means it all depends on your 90% of the advancement depends on chanting. Yes, chanting should be done properly, but what is the mood with which you chant? What is your desire? So that is why this attitude is so important. That should be understood when Guru molds it. Yeah, any other question? Any other questions or comments? Okay, there are other. Okay, here is a question about what is Brahman, what is impersonal Brahman and spiritual Brahman. Are they same, or it is based on person's consciousness? Person's consciousness, will it differ as in different terms? So now we need to understand, whenever Brahman is being said, it's said impersonal Brahman. What is this Brahman? You have to understand. It's in simple terms. It is the effulgence that is coming out from the Lord's body, Brahma Jyoti. It's effulgence that is spread everywhere. So there is nothing like spiritual Brahman or material Brahman. Actually, Brahman is spiritual. Okay, the whole idea is Brahman is spiritual. So this is the understanding that, and we say impersonal Brahman just to understand that it is a light. So that is the whole point about all these things. So not to get confused. So we also know the different levels of realization: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatma iti bhagavan iti shabdyate. So it is one level of realization of the absolute truth. So, and then we have the Paramatma realization, where you see the Lord in localized form in the hearts of everyone, and then the Lord in his personal feature as Bhagavan with all the 6 opulences you see. So all the 3 are spiritual. There is no question of material there. So that is the whole point. Okay, any other questions? Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
Successfully advancing into, if he wants to Ashtanga Yoga. My question is, does a pure yogi, Jnana yogi, does it feel necessary to get into Ashtanga Yoga platform? Maybe you have some examples where a Jnana yogi steps into Ashtanga Yoga.
Okay, so the question is, does the Jnana Yogi, does he take up the process of Ashtanga Yoga? Is it required for him? Does he have to do it? Correct?
Not necessarily. We have an example.
Yeah. So, so the point here is that, so we have to understand the process of, there are two kinds of practitioners here. One is, he merges with the impersonal Brahman, that is the idea. Then another practitioner, what he does, he engages in this eightfold system, and by his strong meditation, by the whole process of the eightfold system leads to samadhi. With samadhi, he is meditating on the Paramatma. Yes, this there are some practitioners who perform by their yogic practice. They come to the level of by their dhyan, they attain the level of Paramatma. But then again, another set of a person, they are stuck on the platform of impersonal Brahman. So it could be on a case basis, not necessary that everyone has to go through this process of Ashtanga Yoga. So we have to check for. I am not very sure, but right now we have handy with some examples. We may have to look into it, but it should be on a case basis, that that not necessarily that everybody may have to go through this whole process. This is one process that there are some transcendentalists, they go through this process. But one thing which for sure, those who are trying to go through the Paramatma realization, they definitely go through this process that we see here. That is there. Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.